Hello. The commission model of teaching was developed by Dorothy Heathcote. She designed it for use in schools, where young people would be commissioned to undertake a task, perhaps by an organisation in the community, or perhaps internally by another teacher, say. The idea, in part, was to break down the barriers that exist between schools and the world outside, and to give young people a real stake and a real voice in society. The largest project that Dorothy herself did was the Hexham Hospital Garden Commission, where a group of young people were commissioned to help design a hospital garden. From 2019 to 2022, I worked with a number of educational organisations across Europe on an Erasmus Plus project on the commission model. Now, there already exist models of project-based work which involve young people meeting a commission from an outside business or organisation. This is especially the case in higher education. I'm talking about models such as design thinking or capstone projects. When we started our Erasmus Plus project, we had to consider how the commission model is different, because it is. One of our partners was Społeczna Akademia Nauk, a graduate school in Łódź in Poland, which sometimes uses design thinking or capstone projects with its students. A class of students at the university were asked by their lecturer to look at the differences and similarities between capstone projects and the commission model. And this is a chart that one group produced. They noted, for example, that in the commission model, there's a focus on teaching and learning, whereas in capstone projects, the focus is on business problems. The commission model focuses on exploration. Capstone projects focus on the professional skill set of the students. In the University of Technology in Łódź, there's a student support service called BON. A group of international students at the university were commissioned to raise awareness of the work of the service. Shortly after the project began, I led a drama session with the students where we explored some of the issues raised by the commission. You can see a video of the session online on YouTube called The Commission Model Drama in Łódź. You can also see a video of a talk I gave on the commission model at the University of Łódź. Teachers from the Erasmus Plus project also took part in the session, and afterwards we discussed some of the differences as we see them between the commission model and models such as design thinking. We discussed, for example, the importance of embodiment, which can lead to new insights, and the way the commission model engages the affective as well as the cognitive. I began by saying why I think it is important that we do make these differences clear. Our apologies for the sound issues in the recording. Because otherwise people might say, well, okay, if it's the same, why bother doing something? We're already doing it. Or they might approach the commission model thinking it's similar, and they might kind of force it into something else, into the model that they know, which might be design thinking, or it might be capstone project, or whatever. And I think you have to say this is different, and it would change the way you work if you use this commission model. For those students yesterday, I think if they went on to do this project fully for BON, for this disabled students, I think there would be a different dimension to it from the kind of work that we do than they would have from the kind of commission from a business client where there's a business product at the end of it.
I think maybe the students have learned that. I think when you do, when they do design thinking and that kind of stuff, because I did that recently I was involved in the University of Birmingham in a design sprint. And it's similar, so they did the empathy map, for example. So the idea was, I'll tell you what the problem was. How can the University of Birmingham work better with student interns? So how can they get more out of the internships they offer? Yeah. And how they can work better with companies. So it was a mixture of people, students, lecturers and sort of people from company. So they said, sit down and do an empathy map. Imagine a company person. And it was really difficult because you sit there with the head, think about the empathy. It don't work. So it was very boring. People said, oh yeah, this man is from the NHS, the National Health Service. and he will need, and it didn't move on at all. It was exactly the same. And I think this embodying it in the workshop, sort of trying, I always say mantle is like you try on a new jacket and you think, oh, maybe if I wear it a bit longer. So I think this is what we need to, it helps, like what you described as well, it helps to connect the emotional with the brain, I think, and links that up, because I felt like the empathy map exercise was completely pointless in there when we did it. And I said to the university later, it was complete. You can imagine. I was the creative in that meeting. I was very polite. And I said I was very polite, but it was completely pointless. Because nobody learned anything from this empathy map. Well, I think yesterday, like, we see people change. Like Christy got in the role suddenly. You were seriously suddenly this month. Well, you didn't want to do it at all. So it might be interesting also to ask you what it was like. You didn't want to do it in the beginning, and then you were so in it. It's really interesting. So I think that's maybe something for the university. It's not just some silly acting. It's actually really trying to be that person in a physical way. Because I think they have done studies that this is real, that if you enact stuff, that it gives you more access to an emotional state of mind.
And I'm sure, 100% sure, that the group that was put in the situation would have much more ideas, like a research setting. I think because the university always wants to get some
they always want
proofs.
Yeah.
Because I could feel it, that after I had some ideas I would not have had here in that room.
Empathy map. Perhaps people feel that they have to say right things because the other ones are pay attention for what you are saying. So perhaps you feel uncomfortable and afraid to say wrong things. I think that with commission or mantle, what we made yesterday, people understood that they are out that their own life. They are in a different situation. They can say all they want to say. They can do all they want to do because nobody will say you are stupid. That's not nice. So
it's again that.
Yes. So they feel comfortable to be what they want to be because nobody will say it's not. This is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Everything is accepted.
What Margarita said, you're afraid saying something wrong, or you think in the old lines, always repeating the same stuff.
Yeah.
And then for so many ideas we had about the online thing, or about many ideas we wouldn't have had on the empathy.
Because we can see here, we can see.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we can see.
I was thinking about how difficult the situation is. Angelica only had a few sessions. Actually, visits between them might be complicated. I just had this idea, because they were technology as well, as I understood it. They could be involved in like designing a game of some kind, or working with students who have particular special needs. Working with them, maybe a computer game, for example, or a game of some kind, and it might something to do with routes, directions, maps, buildings, environments of a university, and maybe having journeys as a kind of possible theme, and finding out how people encounter difficulties. And it doesn't have to just be the special needs; it could be anybody who comes, obviously, but that they pool their ideas to make something. And when they're making it for maybe another group of young people who are thinking of coming, of all range of needs. So I think, to my mind, it's kind of important to merge all our special needs, really. Some that are more extreme, perhaps, than others. That we work with them, we don't do it for them, because I think that's condescending, it can be patronising, it can be, we are helping you. And I almost think that, we could be helping somebody else, maybe somebody more formalised, I don't know, but I just think working with them would be a great idea. So they might have had some kind of exchange, like over technological exchange via the computer, to negotiate areas and to identify areas of possible risk, and to have the thoughts of people about what might need to be done to prepare someone coming in, or to attract people coming in So it would almost be, could have a game, you know, like when you go to Monopoly, you come to a card, you pick it up, and it's, you can have certain issues on the card, and you have to make decisions about it, or who to turn to, and I don't know, stuff like that. I got a bit excited about it, really. But I might have been the only one. But and I think the difference also is the fact that the way you address students is very, very different. I imagine, I can't say for definite because I don't know what people do in design thinking, to be fair. But I'm just thinking, you are always in commission, you're inviting, it's an invitation to take part. So, you know, you're treating them in a completely, I think you're positioning the students in a different way. You know, rather than we've got, you know, I imagine sometimes you do get things in schools where you have commissions outside. Oh, someone has asked us to design this park because and they're very direct about it. And I think somebody else hit the nail on the head earlier on when they said design thinking can be very linear. You know, so maybe we're not going on the railway track, but we're actually in the estuary and there's tributaries feeding in, as Dorothy would say. So it's a wider scope. But I do think addressing young people differently, inviting them differently, positioning them differently. Because don't forget, we're always treating them as colleagues, whether it's mantle or whether it's commission. You know, and so they become, as in the garden thing, you know, they were the commissioners. The teachers were no longer called Mr. and Mrs. They were called the commissioners. So it's that shift, isn't it? It's not just the role in the imaginative, it's the whole way that we're inclusive with these people. And actually that they have a decision to make whether they will accept the commission or not. Now, whether that comes into design thinking, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, when I did it with Albert, it was obviously, do you think we should do this? And then obviously for a teacher, you think, my God, what if they say no? And I planned it all. Well, you make sure they don't say no because you make it so attractive and you make it so interesting and you build it up and you don't address it till they are in it and you know they won't say no.
These are notes which Dorothy Heathcote produced for the Hexham Hospital Garden Commission. They have observations on the position of the teacher in the Commission Model project. I'm particularly intrigued by the notes in the bottom left-hand corner, the deliberate infusion of the other and conventions to keep the human face. Those notes that I just read in the talk the other day, when I just got those few notes where she talked about at the centre of it is the other, and it's these conventions to create the human face. And I think this is always at the centre of it. It is the other person, it is the people, their face, I think, in the sense of our responsibility to the other person and to them as a being. You know, and I don't feel happy when I hear in design thinking people talking about, oh, we define the problem people with the problem and then we solve it for them. And I feel that is not putting the person at the centre, it's putting the product at the centre. So I think that this is, you know, I think this will go in the book, that it's the person, it's the human at the centre of this work.
It's humanising.
There's a book about this.
There's a book about it, actually. I just thought I'd mention it. It's humanising. You got that, Zach?
I think the Commission model has an important contribution to make to higher education, including business-centred courses. The focus in the Commission model on stewardship, for example, concern for the other, concern for the environment, is in tune with some of the calls for responsible innovation in business and in industry. We look forward to continuing to explore the applications of the Commission model in higher education in the future.